What's up, guys? Welcome back to Project Time Garage. Well, it's wintertime in Tennessee. That means it gets dark really early. Seems like lunchtime to me. Either way, that truck has a whole lot of lights up top and not a single one of them's hooked up. Today, we fix that. Well, this is Project Freedom. This is our 2000 Ford F-250 7.3 that we got really cheap because of the supposedly bad engine. If you haven't seen that, or if you want to know more about that, I want to link that right up here. Let's see. I want to link it right there. Well, where's it at? Oh, there it is. I told you I was going to link it up there. We bought this roof rack off of Marketplace, really cheap, and we sort of halfway correctly fitted it to the truck and put a bunch of lights up there, and they don't work, and it's time to make them work. So I've got a big front bar, I've got a rear bar, and I've got two side pods on either side. And my idea is I've got a switch pod set up. So I'll show you more about that here in a second. My idea is I'd like to be able to control the front light independently, the rear light independently, and then the left two lights for the ditch and then the right two lights for the ditch separately, as you know, as a pair separately. So the idea is behind all this is it seems like whenever I'm in this truck, I'm out doing stuff very outdoorsy, and whether it's working on stuff or fixing a tractor or digging something out of the woods or whatever. And it always gets dark, and I've always got flashlights and headlamps. I'm out on the side of the road and I'm working on something and I can't see, and this right here would be really helpful for me to be able to do that. No, it's not an off-road truck. I don't go mudding and four-wheeling and all that. I use it. It's a work truck, basically. So anyway, let's back it in the garage and see if we can make this work out right. So this is what we're going to work with. This is a switch panel that has a brain box that has all the relays and stuff built into it. Has about everything we need, and just in case you're wondering, yes, the box is included. It's good stuff. Here's how this thing works. We have this, it's a relay box. It has built-in relays, built-in circuits in it. Got 230s, 220s, 210s, and 2.5s. So basically, you mount this, you feed it a good hefty power wire and a good hefty ground. This thing here plugs into it and lets you be able to control these relays just with this. So we really only have to run one wire into the cab of the truck, which is really handy. It also came with a 60 amp circuit breaker, which is super nice. So using this, I can wire up, you know, here, let's orient it properly. I can wire up, you know, left ditch lights, right ditch lights, front bar, you know, cargo light, the bumper lights, and then I have 3 spots for other stuff should I choose to add more things in the future. And oh yes, I will indeed. And this is the length of braided wire that goes from the control board up to the switch panel. So I think I know already where I'm going to mount all of this stuff. I just need to find a good home for this. So that's what we should do first. And I'll tell you what I think I'm going to do. This is the inside of the battery box tray. This thing is pretty vibration resistant because it has all the goo poured in it. It's metal. I think what I'm going to end up doing, I think I'm going to end up zip tying it or doing something that's easily removable right here to the inside of this. I like the idea that some air will come over it, yet it won't be wet right there. So I think that's what we're going to do. I think we're going to go for that. The first thing I'm going to do, I think, though, is start getting my wiring harness put together, because I still don't know what route I'm going to take with my harness. I have no idea. I don't know exactly how I'm going to make it stick to the outside of the truck. I have all kinds of questions. So here's my thought process. The wires have to get somehow from under this hood up to that light bar. And there's not a real good way of doing it, short of just drilling big holes in the hood and the roof of the truck. I'm just not going to do that. It's got enough holes in it now. So here's what I'm thinking I'm going to do. I have some of that fabric wire loom, and I'm only running 4 wires up there anyway, 4 16-gauge wires. So the wire packet is going to be really small. Should be about the size of a pencil. So what I think I'm going to do, I think I'm going to just run it right on the inside of the windshield here, possibly. Or maybe I'll run it right here. And I think I'm going to use that 3M adhesive wire sticky stuff. You basically just stick them on here up through there, and the wire loom either clips into it or you zip tie the loom to it. So basically just do that all of the way up here, and when I get up here, then I can just jump over, and you know, you're going to see it. It's not going to be completely invisible, but the light bar is not invisible either, is it? So that's the direction we're going to go. I don't know what I expect this to look like when we're all said and done. I expect something. Let's move forward. So here's what we have. I have the 4 circuits that I'm going to run up there, 16 gauge. And I have some of this 1/4 inch split loom. It's kind of clothy, nylon-y, and this fits perfectly. In fact, it's like it was made for this, what I'm doing. So I think that's going to work. What I'll do is I'll pull off as much of this wire as I'm going to need for the main harness, and I'll go ahead and chuck it up in a drill and spin it up and get all these all twisted together nice. Wrap a little tape around them every few feet, and then we'll go ahead and put them in the split loom, and then we'll go ahead and build our weather pack connectors on the end of them. Should be a nice clean project. See, what I've done here is I've taken a piece of marker string, and I've ran it along my planned route, and I ran it to this loop right here. This loop is the length I need plus probably 2 feet. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and grab all of my wires that I have set up on a little makeshift spool thingy here, and we're going to run all of those wires out to that same spot, to that same length. So what I'm going to do now is, I'm really not sure how that got all trapped in there. I wish it hadn't. What I'm going to do now is just kind of drop these, and I'm going to come back over here and cut my length. We'll cut these like so. And then I'm going to take these ends, and I'm just going to stick them in the vise like so. Then we're going to chuck them up in the drill. Once we've done that, we're just going to start twisting. And I usually go until it doubles up over itself, and I stop. We'll back off. Did you see how much shorter it got? And when we let it go, it'll flop around a little bit. But basically, what we've made there is a nice, pretty, twisted wire loom that we can put in our split loom. Now's the tedious part. We're going to put all of it in a split loom, like so. And it goes pretty fast once you get it started. You can just kind of work it down on there. But anyway, when it's all done, we'll end up with some length out, and it'll all look like that. I'll bring you back when I get to that point. So here's what I ended up with. I just took one of the DIY weather pack deals, crimped the ends on those, put them in here, and we'll run this up to the roof rack and find a good place to tie it off and terminate it. And we'll run each of the all the light connectors into this side, into this weather pack side, so that we have a break point there at the roof rack. So should we ever decide to take the roof rack off, we can just unplug it and take it off. We'll do a wire for the front, a wire for the rear, a wire for the right 2 pods, and a wire for the left 2 pods, all in a nice, neat package. So hopefully it'll be fairly weather resistant, not like the truck stays parked outside anyways. So all right, there's that. Okay, now that we've got all the wiring made, let's go ahead and mount the control unit. And I'm also going to put a circuit breaker in there before it. I'll probably mount that to the outside of the battery box too. So let's go do that. All right, I'm going to mount this thing upside down just because it's a lot easier to get to the wires later. And I'm going to mount it low as I can possibly mount it. So this is our circuit breaker, and if you read on it, it says battery and aux or load. So this side comes from the battery terminal itself, and this side goes out to feed the brain box here. So I'll orient it like this so that this side is closest to here, and I can come straight down with the battery and with the battery cable and jump on that there. Since I can't get my drill on the outside of this battery box because of the space, I've gone over here and I've transferred my my hole pattern to this template, and that will let me get my hole drilled in the right spot. First time, every time. There we go. All right. Next, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to drill a hole for my cable to come through here, and we will run it down to the brain box. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run this a little bit lower. Now, it's just a matter of sizing our wire, or getting the wire cut to the right length. So I can do this one first. I know that I'm going to come from here up to here, and I know that I'm going to come around to here. So I can afford to give myself a little bit of extra length. So I'm going to cut it right about here. For those of you who do not have the electrician's scissors, get them, because you can take wire like this and just cut it like that. It's pretty good wire. So there's that one. And the next one's going to come from the positive battery post. I'm just going to give myself a little bit of extra length there, and we'll run it up something like this. All right. Now, let's go over to the table and we'll solder up some ends, and then we'll hook these up, and then that part will be sort of put together. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to solder these ends on these cables that we just made, and I'm sure everybody has their own way of doing this, and I have mine, but I use the electrician's scissors as normal. So I'm going to go ahead and start getting some heat in this and get the solder to start melting. There we go. While it's nice and hot, I'm just going to run my cable down in it. Now it'll take it a while to harden, so I'm going to try to be as still as possible while it does that. All right, so there we go. There's that one. That's one end made. Yeah, it charged the end a little bit, but what can you do? All right, there you go. So we have two custom length cables with ends. I even put some heat shrink on there because I'm an overachiever. Let's put those on the truck. Okay, we're going to start with this guy down here. We'll just bend this around the way we need it. Stick it out the hole. Do the same thing for this one. Just going to bend it about maybe a 45 or so. Something like that. There we go. All right, so that's us. We'll make the connection to the battery probably last. For right now, I'm going to get a vacuum cleaner. I'm going to vacuum all this mess out of here because it's messing with my OCD. So, went ahead and pulled the dashboard out of the truck and trying to decide on my mounting strategy. And this thing comes with a bracket and such that sits up here, but it sits it way off the dash. I don't like how that looks. So what I've done is I've taken these holes in the bottom of it, here. These are all tapped, but this bracket is supposed to affix itself to them. So I just took this bracket and used that as a template to drill a couple of holes. And this is where the four-wheel drive selector goes, but my truck was converted over to a manual floor shift four-wheel drive long before I got it, so I don't need this. I had a light switch here. So anyway, I think I'm going to just put it through like this. Let's see what that looks like. I mean, the worst we could do is absolutely just despise it. All right. I'll have to put some Loctite on these. Probably maybe some red Loctite, because I don't ever want them to come back off again. Famous last words. See how that looks before we get too committed. Yeah, that's actually not too bad. Has a little bit of a gap at the bottom, but you're not going to see it because it's going to be sitting up. There actually is a little bit of gap at the top too, but we'll figure out some way to cover that up as time goes on. Okay, this thing just takes this plug, and this right here runs out to the brain box. So it's basically one connection, and we're good to go. So I'm going to go ahead now, and I'm going to run this part from under the hood up to this point. All right, so here we are. Switch panels mounted. I still don't have the batteries back in the truck yet, but at least the panel is mounted. Still have to do something with my little button there. So that's done. Under the hood, we have our box mounted. We have our circuit breaker mounted. That's hooked up. We actually have a ground over here too. If this ground looks like a piece of red cable with black electrical tape around it, that's because it's a red cable with black electrical tape around it. You use what you got. I took the control wire for this thing and ran it out the box and through the firewall down in there, and that's how it gets into the truck. I got to go back and put some silicone in that hole so I don't hear so much truck through it. Well, now that all that's done, really the only thing left to do is wire our light pairs together up here and put the weather pack connectors on them. Earlier we went ahead and built our pigtail that goes up. So really that's all that's left. Wire that together, plug it in, and enjoy the brilliant light. So I'm going to pull that off the truck now. So unfortunately, I lost the entire audio for this portion of the clip, but this is the weather pack connector that I've made and attached to the roof rack. And the idea is I want to be able to unplug this thing at will and be able to remove the roof rack without having to do a bunch of unwiring. We've got one wire running to each light, blue for the back, green for the right ditch, red for the front, and yellow for the left ditch lights. So, and then it's a pretty nice, neat deal, and it should be weatherproof as well. So everything is in the rack now. I ran everything around the sides here, and there's a nifty little channel that I was able to push pretty much everything in. Everything is split loomed, heat shrunk, soldered, and zip tied up out of the way. So hopefully it will be at least somewhat weather resistant. And there is the split loom pigtail that we're going to run down to the brain box that will connect the roof rack. At this point, we're going to go ahead and we're going to A, test our work, and B, see what the amperage draw is for each one of these things. So I have my jumper box out here, and I'm just going to set it up for amperage. We'll run it up on 20 amps, set to DC scale. And basically, as I run these lights, it'll show me the amperage. So I'll go ahead and put my my positive lead, or one of my leads, it really no negative and positive here, in the positive side of the jump box. The negative side of the jump box is grounded down there to the leg of the roof rack, so that's acting as my ground. The other lead I have in my hand, this one, that'll be 12 volts positive at this point, so anything I touch it to should turn on. So the first thing we're going to touch it to is going to be the rear light. And we'll see that that's pulling about 3.6, 3.7 amps, which is a lot less than I expected it would be. And I'll show you back here, the light actually on. We'll flash it a couple of times so you can see the effect or how much light it puts out. There we go. And next we're going to go over to the ditch lights on my side. So this will be the two on my side. The pair of them wired together, pulling about 1.7 amps. Again, way lower than we expected. And there they are, working. Next, we'll go, oh, it's also important that I mention that these things are only pulling a little over 3/4 of an amp apiece. That's pretty impressive. Next thing we're going to do is go up to the front, run that light bar. This is going to be the big draw here, coming in about a little over 7 amps, right at 7 amps. My booster box is not completely hot, so that amperage is going to be a little higher than that, I would assume. I'm going to budget for probably 7.5 amps with a totally hot box. Last but not least, let's run the ditch lights on the right side. They should be about the same as the left side at about 1.7 amps. So there we go. So really 15 amps or less for the entire roof rack when it's running is not that bad. Now that we've done this, let's go and see the things on the truck and lit up. So here we are in the woods. Took Freedom out for a drive on the back of my property. And basically, here's the difference. So in the front, I've got the light bar, which does a lot. And then I have the fog lights, which also do a lot. Also, I think those fog lights may be a little bit too bright. I'll have to adjust those. Anyway, fog lights, and then to the side of the truck, I have ditch lights, so that kind of lights it up. You can see my reverse pods back there when I turn those on. And then I also have rear illumination, so no excuse to not be able to see, right? So I'll just turn them all on, and we'll just go for a little ride through the woods. Sorry if my camera work's gonna suck, but it's pretty bouncy. It's pretty muddy too. Big hill. Can see really well. Can you tell it's bumpy? Bumpy. Oh, and check out those those dash lights, those super bright LEDs from Super Bright LEDs. They do good too. And there's the gauge pod all lit up too. Just another angle of that too, if you're curious to see that. Anyway, just thought I would ride you along with see what it looks like. All right, guys, that's it. That's a wrap. The lights look awesome. They do a good job lighting the thing up at night, which is exactly what we were going for. Installation was pretty straightforward. I highly recommend that switch panel. I'm going to link that down in the bottom on Amazon for you guys. We have more stuff to do on this, so I'll make sure that as I put new stuff on it, you guys are included. Really appreciate you guys watching this video. If you like it, give me a thumbs up. If you got something to say down in the comments, let's hear it. Don't forget, tell all your friends about us. Make sure they come, like, share, subscribe. I'll see you next time.